what's going on, everybody? I'm Jake Thomas, your host, welcoming you to another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. Today's guest is a functional movement mobility specialist. He's also a barefoot movement coach. He's the host of the Back to Human podcast. You can find it at Back to Human podcast, where your podcasts are available. He's an advocate of healthy food and healthy living. He's a husband. He's a father. He's a South Floridian. And someone that I've kept up with for quite a while is actually on his show, the Back to Human podcast, but somebody that shares an affinity for physical and spiritual nutrition and many similarities that I do. He's been through some intense journeys in the same way that I have with, be it substance or company or just consumption, mindless consumption of whatnot. And we'll delve into that for sure. But without further ado, welcome to the show, James Andriella. Welcome, James. And I hope I pronounced that correct.
Thank you, brother.
I gave you the Spanish Y for the double L.
Yeah, I like it. Andriella. It's more Italian. It
More
seems
Italian,
Spanish, but it's
course.
Italian. Yeah. No, but
Right
it's an
on.
honor, man. Thank you very much. I know you've had some great guests on the show. You had Mark Magna, I think, that you had recently.
Yeah.
And Sean Baker. So, no, it's an honor. Thank you for considering me.
Oh, dude, for sure. And I had a great time talking with you and on your show, especially just because I didn't know how much we had in common as far as in dark pasts and, journeys that kind of had to help us define some resilience, self-reliance, and fortitude, perseverance. Let's go right after that, man. You're talking off camera about having some stories and whatnot, and obviously the like minds that we found on your show. What was your childhood like? What got you to have those stories, and what got you to the places that you and I were able to find a kinship in?
So, I guess it would be best to start off with stating that I'm adopted. And growing up my entire life, whenever I told people this, they were always so surprised. But meanwhile, I was like, it's not really a big deal. Like, I have a mom and dad. Like, I grew up under a roof. I had a roof over my head. I had meals. Granted, probably weren't the best in hindsight now that I've learned that. But I mean, my parents gave me a really good life. I was very athletic. I played pretty much all sports: baseball, football, taekwondo. I had my black belt. I was always athletic growing up. But everyone was always surprised by me telling them that I'm adopted. And then some people would mention, it's like, oh, things make sense now. I'm just like, I don't really get what that means. And then I had a few people suggest to me that I should meet my biological family. Like they were pressuring me more into this than I was actually interested in. Probably I would say that I had some type of denial there or some defense mechanism. I guess there's a lot of pain associated with being adopted. Now that I know that, there's actually a book on it. It's called The Primal Wound. And having a son now, and my fiance, not wife, I'm not married yet, but she's a doula. Witnessing her birth, we were going for a home birth and didn't really turn out the way that we wanted to. We got transferred to a hospital, but she was still able to deliver unmedicated and vaginally, so no C-section. So it was a major FU to the medical system, which I am not really the biggest fan of. But so seeing just what it means to bring a child into this realm, this world, and then going back to when I was born, like I was kind of just taken away from my parents immediately. Like I see how important it is to have a mother, see how important it is to have a father. And growing up, baby James was just like, I didn't have that. So I didn't really understand it. And how that showed up in my life was later on in relationships, it showed up as anger, jealousy. I was very, very jealous, especially in like a relationship with a significant other. Very insecure, not really confident, even though I had like the muscles and everything. Like I had everything going for me, but like deep down, I had some really, really bad insecurities. And my way of resolving this at the time was through alcohol. So I would consider myself at the time in the past pretty much like a functioning alcoholic. Like I was drinking daily and kind of ashamed of it in hindsight, but I would even be drunk, not drunk, but like tipsy during sessions. And I just thought it was cool. Like I flowed better, whatever. You know how
Mm.
alcohol is. Like
You mean
it
like when
seems
you
like
were
it's an up.
working with clients, like coaching people, cueing people?
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
How old were you at the
And I had
time
some
during
people.
this?
I was like 25, 26.
Nice.
So yeah, not something I'm really proud of. I had some people call me out on this. They could literally smell it on my breath. Um, but I went through a dark period, and when I saw that you interviewed Mark and that you had a close relationship with Mark, Mark's probably one of the biggest reasons. I don't know if he knows this, but why I did a whole 180 and I flipped my life around.
Oh,
So he
amazing.
played a big part in my life, and I only had like brief interactions with him.
Oh, amazing.
So going into that this was like pretty much the catalyst for my huge holistic transformation, my dive into spirituality, really honing in on nutrition. I was working at a gym, like slaving away, man. I'm making like $20 an hour, working 12 to even 16-hour days. I would go in the early morning sessions, move all the squat racks and stuff around because we were renovating. We didn't really have a whole lot of help. And I was just exhausted, man. And combine this with drinking alcohol. I was following an if fit your macro keto-ish type thing where I would eat the keto bars. I was still low carb, and then it just kind of got to me at this point, and I was in a relationship where I started to smoke weed. That led to actually diving out of the whole keto realm and just pretty much eating like everything, man. Like Ben and Jerry's ice cream daily, uh, Monster energy drinks,
Mm.
Sour Punch candies, a lot of refined sugars. And my mental health really took a dive here. Like I started having anxiety attacks. I had insomnia, so long work days, underpaid, felt underappreciated. Everything just started to go to crap. And it started to reflect in the relationships. I was very angry, and I was looking for work. I was looking for a new job. I was trying to leave. And the person that I reached out to was actually Mark Megna at Anatomy. So I had an interview with them. My previous job didn't really know that I was looking elsewhere. And the day before I was supposed to go in for the interview, I couldn't sleep that night. I ended up just driving into work. It was like 3, 4 a.m. I was just going to take like a short nap before the session started. And I fell asleep at the wheel.
Oh,
And I ended up crashing into the rail for the on-ramp where I was supposed to get off. And right before I was about to like hit it head on, I heard a voice and it said, "Wake up," like loud, "Wake up." And I was able to slam on the brakes before what would have been me just like going off the hill because you know the South Florida ramps and such like that.
yeah.
So that was the same day that I had an interview. Not even like 6 hours after that, I had to get a rental and everything, and I drove down to Anatomy, and I showed up to Anatomy. Mark Megna greeted me, and he said, "I've seen that look before." And I was like, "What look?" I didn't even care about the interview or anything at the point. I was just like, "What does he mean by that?"
Yeah.
And literally just that sentence alone, I didn't end up getting the job because I was really in a bad mental state. I kind of just bombed the interview. I did a lot of complaining at the time. It was all about me, and not the team kind of culture that they were trying to build.
Yeah.
So didn't get that job. Everything kind of works out in hindsight. But what he said, I've seen that look before, really made me do some reflecting and uh, just diving deeper into what I am really doing with my life. Like where is my trajectory right now? Am I headed on the right path? And I really wasn't. So after that, everything fell apart. I didn't get the interview. I left my job. I decided to go out on my own. Uh, my girlfriend at the time left me. So I was pretty much at rock bottom, not to mention that I was broke too. So
Nice.
from there, that's when I started my rebuilding process.
Man, the world just got a lot smaller. That's crazy. That's amazing. I'm not gonna say it's crazy. It's amazing. Yeah. glad you're okay. You know, obviously falling asleep at the wheel at speed and to be able to walk away from it and go to the interview. Like, shout out to Mark Magna and everybody at Anatomy. Love you, Mark. Love you guys. Another life you touched, Mark. So thanks for that. And yeah, that's saying what you said about I know that look like that hit home, huh? That really hit home for
Mm-hmm.
you, yeah.
Yep. Like I felt when I looked in the mirror afterwards, I felt like I looked gaunt, like just sunken,
Mm,
not vibrant at all, depressed. I would definitely say I was depressed. And even looking back at some of like my journal entries, one night I I was writing late at night in a drunken stupor, and I hadn't written in my journal for a while. So once I picked it up again and I read the last entry, I read the last line that I wrote, and it wasn't pleasant. It was literally said that I want to kill myself, and I've never even told anyone that. So that's me being vulnerable here. And the moment that I read that, I ended up taking that journal and I just threw it in the trash, and I was like, all right, it starts here.
wow. Well, wow, thank you for sharing that and for being vulnerable like that. What was the first thing you did? You know, obviously you throw this in the trash. Like what? You know, here's something of value to somebody else, where you have the opportunity to like absolutely give value to someone or some bodies. You're at your rock bottom. You annotate out, I want to kill myself. You feel like the world's crashing down around you. The girl you were in a relationship with, maybe in love with, has left. You're broke. You feel down and out. You walked out of your job. You didn't get hired. Did not get hired at another one. You feeling pretty down, and you annotate out like you said, I want to kill myself, but you didn't. You threw that book in the trash, and you started on this path to recovery or rebuilding process, like you called it. Give a listener or a viewer those steps, because that's a real problem that real people have every single day, where somebody's down and out, or they're broke, or they got left, or they're depressed, or they're saddened, or they got into a car accident. Any one of those things alone, let alone the list of them together. But you didn't succumb to maybe taking that easy way out or being, overrun by what's so seemingly overwhelming. How did you not? What were those steps? Take us through those steps to get you upright.
The very first thing that I did was I cleaned up my diet. Nutrition, number one. Uh, I was living at home at the time, again, broke, and there's a meal delivery service around my area. It's called Eat Clean.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I know it.
I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to be regimented. I need some discipline. I need to not mess around with any of the junk food, the Ben and Jerry's, the shakes, candy, whatever it is. Like that's all got to go. Um, and I was living at home at the time, and my mom saw these meals come in, and she was mad. She's like, "How are you paying for this?" I'm
Mm,
like, "I can't at the time." Honestly, I was like, "This is my way out." I texted her. I remember this text. I said, "This is what's going to help me heal. Like this is what I need." And my plan was to they had a referral service at the time, so it's like if you referred 8 people or something like that, then you get your meals for free. I don't know if they still have that, but my goal was to get 8 people on to join with me on these meals, and I got my meals for free. So that only took like
amazing,
literally a month.
amazing.
So yep, so I was getting meals for free at that point. I was shouting them out on social media. I dropped alcohol. That was a huge one. Like cold turkey. No more alcohol, period. No more beer. No more chilling with friends that drank. Um, and I was already working out at the time, so I had that going for me. Like even despite the junk diet um, and the alcohol, I was still fairly lean. I was strong, and I started watching. It was on Netflix at the time, The Secret.
Mm,
So I got into like subconscious programming, and I would watch this literally every single night before I went to sleep. I think that played a huge role. and nutrition, dropped alcohol, was already working out. I was very mindful of who I was surrounding myself with at that point. I had to be. So you are your circle. The people that you see around you, they are your mirrors, whether you want to admit it or not. Whatever characteristics, not all of them, but some part of them is a part of you. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So there's a law of attraction. We're essentially like magnets. If you're looking for good relationships, if you're looking for wealth, like you need to put yourself in those circles. And just being super disciplined, man, like writing down my goals. So I had the goals for getting the 8 clients under eClean. I was out on my own again. So I had no one to report to anymore. I had to do it all on my own. Uh, Shameless advertising my workouts and such like that. Just doing good work because I got 20 clients within probably like 2 months or so like that. Granted, it was like dirt cheap, the rates that I was charging, just to, like build myself up and have some type of income.
Sure.
But goals, writing them down, literally having them in front of me every single day. And then each time that I would get a new client or I would get a client on eClean or whatever goals I had at the time, just mark it off. And it's like one step closer, one step closer. It doesn't need to be like this huge leap. And I was actually thinking about this before jumping on here. I was excited for this one. I was like, you don't need to make huge, drastic changes. It's like little things accumulating over time. That is what is going to get you to your destination, whatever your goals are. Just the consistency and the persistence. So being overwhelmed, broke, no girlfriend at the time. It's like I felt like a loser. It's like just going through that. And that's probably one of the best life lessons that I've ever learned. It's like the world could seem to be crashing down around you, but you're still gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And there's a quote. It's at the end of Dr. Joe Dispenza's book. It's like the old must fall away and apart before you can build something new. And I think that's how God works. I think that's how the universe works. If you ask for something, be ready to receive it. And it might not look the way that you want it to look. It might be like the relationship, the girl leaving you, whatever's toxic, whatever doesn't align with that, that all has to go.
Yeah.
That can't stay anymore.
It sounds pretty simple as far as in, all right, so I changed my diet. I changed the people I'm hanging out with, stop drinking alcohol, and get disciplined. Get specific with goals, right? What were you reading at the time? Like, were you a big reader or an avid reader before, or did you start, reading this? Because it took books for me to kind of get to those places and understandings to kind of put that system together. It took a lot of reading and pulling a page from this one, a page from that one, before I kind of found my own kind of philosophy. Were you reading then, or did you start reading, or when did reading and literature come into your? Hey, there it is. Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Probably one of my proudest uh, assets, I guess. So yeah, I was reading at the time, and what's funny is I wasn't really the best reader prior to that, so I would have to reread the same page over and over and over
Yeah,
again. One of
yeah.
the first books that I read prior to actually leaving was Extreme Ownership.
Ooh, Jocko.
It's literally taking accountability for literally everything. So it might not be your fault,
Yeah,
but it is your responsibility.
yeah.
You have some type of control over your life.
I
Yeah.
love the
So
excerpt in that book where he's talking about good. Like we didn't get the new gear we wanted. Good. We'll make do with
yeah.
this old stuff. Oh, the weather isn't
Mhm.
working out for us. Good. We'll get more proficient in inclement weather. Oh, we didn't get to go on the cool mission we wanted to. Good. We're going to master these lesser, less attractive and more boring missions, and we'll be better for it. It's like, oh, this is
Mhm.
my jam here, man.
Yeah. I love it. It's like uncomfortable if you're not used to that, but the more you practice it and the more you just are okay with not everything not going the way that you wanted to according to plan, like you can just stay calm throughout it. You don't need to react and get aggressive. It's like we see people down here in South Florida, they honk their horns if you haven't left the green light within 0.2 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like, I laugh at that. I'm like, how are you so stressed out? Like, where do you have to be? Because you're going to get there probably at the same time. And I remember when I had just started out, I had barely any equipment. I had some center mass bells from Onnit, some steel maces, some steel clubs, a few little mini bands, and I would take clients out to the park because I couldn't really pay rent at any of the gyms yet.
Yeah.
So I had to literally just pocket whatever I could. And I was going to roll one of my clients' cabs out one day, and I didn't have anything available to me. But meanwhile, there was literally an empty vodka bottle, like in the trash can. I was like, I'm going to use it. So it literally make do with what you have. You don't need a whole lot. Things don't need to be perfect.
Would you say that's something that a lot of people are held back by?
Oh, yeah. Like waiting for the perfect moment or just waiting for the perfect opportunity. It's like you have to make the opportunity. It's not just going to come to you. And then I believe in prayer. One of the other books that I read was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh yeah.
The other book, Law of Success, that's probably one of my favorites. There's so many gems in that book.
Yep.
A huge book.
That's a
like
monster.
700 plus pages.
I was
Yeah.
about to say it's a thick one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so many good gems in there. And like I believe in prayer, but what those books taught me is like it all starts with a thought. Everything around you started with a thought. The books that I see on my shelf right here, this laptop, this desk, the buildings surrounding you. It's like someone had an idea. And it's okay to like have these thoughts and ideas. It's okay to pray. But what really, in my opinion, makes it come to fruition and brings it to life is following through with action.
Yeah.
So thought follow through with action. And then you can do whatever you want.
I agree. The most common answer to prayer is no and hold on. And I say that a lot. Like, hey, I'm with you. I pray too. I ask for things. Help is a big one. Just hoping to be listened to by some type of higher power, greater being. But yeah, like the world's a busy place, and whoever it is we're bestowing our prayers to, they're probably pretty busy too, because there's a lot going on. So if it's like, hey Jake, I'll get to it eventually, but not today, buddy. You're gonna have to figure this one out on your own. We're like, yeah, that's a hard no. Figure that shit out, right? Like most common answers are hold on or just dead no. So in the meantime, like sitting there just hoping, praying that it's going to happen. Yeah, I agree with you. You're just marking time and you're not going anywhere. Whereas action, that is the kryptonite to anxiety. Like what can you do? Well, it'll at least give you some assurance that you're making an effort, as opposed to just, hoping and putting all your faith on that. And again, I'm all about faith, but couple that with action, maybe a little determination, some conviction, some consistency. It's like all of a sudden prayer gets pretty powerful. Results seem to come pretty quickly.
Yep. Like you can't necessarily pray your diabetes away. Or from my experience, like if you ask for something, or if you look, like if you knock, someone will open the door. Like if you look, you will find it. So if you're asking for prayer, if you're asking for help from God, from a higher power, you'll receive it, but you have to know what to look for. Like it may seem like a very odd opportunity or something that's just way out of left field. But it's like, I did ask for this, but again, you still have to take action. It's not just going to literally, it may come to your lap, but you got to hold it there.
So how did you craft your style as far as in your beliefs? Like you're talking about taking pages from Law of Success and Think and Grow Rich. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Napoleon Hill as well, and also Dr. Joe. He's the man. I've put those books on so many people because you read the perspective you read the stories from those books and you get perspective about what other people have done, the depths that people have gone through to try to figure things out or try to try and succeed. And somebody might read Think and Grow Rich or Law of Success and think like singular focus. Like, I'm not doing this shit. I'm not going to write all this down. I'm not going to create this mission statement around my buzzwords and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do this meditation that Dr. Joe Dispenza is talking about. That's fucking stupid. I mean, there's a lot of stories in those books, real accounts, firsthand accounts of people finding success. And I think a lot of resistance comes in kind of what you said about the vodka bottle as a roller. Is it's not bad enough if you're not willing to do whatever it takes, right? Like, and I talk to people about that regularly, and I almost use it as a form of encouragement, meaning like you presented a problem, I have offered you a solution. You do not like the solution, just like you're talking about the prayer and the answers. It might not be in this shape or the timeline or whatever that you imagined it or hoped it would be in, but sure as shit, it's there. Like you wanted to talk about learning how to grow this or how to become this. Well, here's this metaphor of the prayer for you to have to go through in life in order to kind of realize, oh, that's what it, well, that's not really what I wanted to do. Well, tough shit, like, sorry, it's not the perfect genie kind of giving you the wish. But what about, from pulling from all those books, how did you craft your philosophy, your ideology? Like you talked about, you and I have talked about it before, about you're very grounded to literally to the earth, right? Like being a barefoot movement coach, like your fitness philosophy is what some would say not necessarily conventional, because more of it is more primal based, more animal flow based. Like you talked about the maces and the different bells. It's not typical, barbells and curls. What got you into that more, I guess, natural sense of fitness and overall health?
So, a really great coach, his name's Troy Jones, got me into more of like the natural movement, being barefoot. So I had ACL surgery on my left knee, and it was probably 2 years or so afterwards. The dates and the timeline, I always get mixed up, but I was probably like 27, 26 at the time. And going downstairs was excruciating.
Mm.
Like, and I was only 26 at the time. I was gritting my teeth just walking down a flight of stairs. Meanwhile, I was a coach. I'm an athletic coach. I could run somehow, but I knew that this wasn't. I was probably going to be on medication, like opiates and stuff like that, painkillers for the rest of my life if I didn't have a change. And this guy just walked in and he showed me, he got me barefoot and he had me do one exercise. He's like, lift up your big toe. And I couldn't lift up my left big toe.
Mm.
Once I started working on that, like rolling out my feet, working on the intrinsic muscles of my feet, I do all my sessions barefoot now. Every single session is either barefoot or in barefoot style footwear, like Vivo Barefoot. And my knee pain went away. So that's how I really started becoming a little bit more mindful of the body. Like it's not just these big muscles, like everything's interconnected.
Yeah.
So if literally my problem was my big toe and I didn't have big toe extension, and that is leading up to pain in my knee, and then probably leading up to hip pain and back pain, it's like it's all connected. I stopped looking at the body as these isolated muscle groups, more like literally what is going down at your feet, what's happening down there, could be affecting what's happening up at your shoulders.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Perry Nicholson, he says, where it is, it ain't. Sometimes. Like sometimes the problem is literally in your rotator cuff or something like that. But when you're spot treating constantly over and over and over again and things aren't getting better, it's like, okay, well, you got to look somewhere else
Yeah.
because there may be something in your fascia. May have restrictions over here that are leading to lack of rotation or whatever it may be. So you kind of have to just look at the body as a whole thing. And if something doesn't work well, just make it work better. So what functional range conditioning does is it's mobility. I'm a functional range conditioning mobility specialist, and you look at what the joints can do. And it's a really, really simple philosophy there where you can't move where you can't move. So you work out, you do these overhead presses and stuff like that. If you can't reach overhead without like your elbow compensating or your lower back arching, it's like you don't really have a whole lot of business then adding load to that
Agreed.
movement.
Agreed.
You're just going to get injured. And the same thing applies to your hips. So just making Dr. Andreas Espina, he doesn't like being called that. He likes being called Dre. But what he says is just make shit work nice. Simple. So you work on the joints, you can isolate there, and then you can't move where you can't move. If you restore mobility into that area, you should theoretically move better. And that's what I've seen with my clients.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's really
As far
your own needs that kind of got you into that and then able to share it with other people and figure out solutions for them too.
I mean, I think that's for all of us coaches. It's like you hit a wall and like you were given this gift, you were given whatever obstacles that you went through, that you persevered through to light the way for someone else that is probably following your footsteps, whether they know it or not. Like people think you're alone and you're the only one that's gone through the situation. It's like, yeah, right. There's been thousands of people that have gone or been in your shoes before. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
And if you don't follow that, you feel like it'll eat at your soul. It's like I'm giving you a gift to share with others. You're a leader. If you don't follow through with this and you kind of dilly dally and do something else, like, okay, but you're probably not going to be happy. You're not going to be fulfilled. And I'm sure you notice this with your coaching and you get all the text messages from your clients like, oh, I feel so much better. I can do this. I couldn't do this before. My whole
Yeah, yeah.
life changed. I was listening to your episode with the butcher McCord,
Yeah,
Sam
yeah,
McCord, I think that's
Sam. Yeah, exactly.
it. It's like that's the most fulfilling thing as a coach is to be able to give people a chance at a better life, like experience this world differently. So you asked how I kind of crafted my philosophy. It's like I believe that everything that we need is here. I believe
Sick.
that we're here by design. I believe that heaven and hell are states of mind. And this is something that I noticed, especially with nutrition. Like once I started cleaning up my diet, when I was drinking and I was doing all the crap food and such, what I realized one day is like I could look at the trees and there was like this yearning. I don't know what it was at the time. Well, I do. But at the gym that I was at, I would literally, in between sessions, just look out the bay door, like out of the sun, out of the trees. And I'm like, I want to be out there. I don't want to be in here.
Hmm.
And over time, what I would notice is looking at trees and the leaves, when I was in a depressed state, everything kind of blurred together. There was no vividness, and nothing like popped.
Mm.
But then as I started to clean up my diet and such, like I could go walk out to a park and it's nothing special over here. We live like near some senior citizens, but like I look at the trees and they're so vibrant, like everything pops individually. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is it. Like we were given everything that we need. The body is capable of healing on its own, but you just needed to support it with the way that it was designed and not go counter to that. So I think everything that we need is here.
So what formulaically or nutritionally, what became your staple medicines?
Fats, fats and proteins. Like I've always been really interested in the ketogenic approach. I read a book by Mauro Di Pasquale. He was like the nutritionist and doctor for the WWF back in the day, and
Mm.
also I think the Canadian Olympic team, NASCAR. I believe I could be getting that wrong, but it was called the Anabolic Diet, and he came out with this book or this diet as a way for bodybuilders to bulk up without putting on extreme amounts of weight. So with bodybuilding, you have like time for bulking and then time for cutting, where they're going through
Yeah.
these massive changes. I'm sure you know this because you've
Yeah.
done competitions. And what he found through this is like he could have bodybuilders compete more frequently without having to go through these drastic changes, and they looked better. They performed better. They gained more muscle. They didn't need to cut as much. Like it's much easier on the body. and it
Yep.
was all literally just high fats, moderate protein, and he did carb cycling. So it'd be like one day out of the week you would load up on carbs, you drop the fat content, and then you would stop literally once you felt like your body was putting on fat. Like you could feel it once you become in tune with your body. And I remember you said it on the podcast that I did with you, where people ask you if you should trust your gut. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
I trust my gut. I wouldn't fucking trust yours.
Yeah.
It's like once you actually are giving the body like optimal nutrition, everything feels differently. Like your intuition, you'll know what you need to fix. You'll know what you need to change.
Yeah.
But when you're numbing yourself out and you're just throwing this trash in your body, like everything's just chaos. Everything's confusion. Nothing makes sense.
It's funny you talk about walking around outside and things looking differently. 100%. I've had the same realization several times over because the first time it happened, I was like, God, I feel like I've just got like this heightened sense of appreciation, or like I'm adoring things differently. Like the colors or of the trees are more vibrant, or like I'm just in more wonder or amazement of nature and the world around me. Like I felt like I was like tripping a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I took like a more than micro but less than macro dose of like mushrooms, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like I okay, well this is cool, you know? And then staying in that space, and it is cool and it stays like that. And then I would reintroduce something and it would disrupt it. Reintroduce something
Mhm.
not conducive to maintaining or preserving, I should say, preserving that state, and it would poof go away. And I'd be like, wait, where did the pretty colors go? And my smiling and love in life kind of like nope,
Mhm.
went away. That poison took the giddiness and playfulness and just kind of like childhood love and wonder out of me, and put on this like, nah, we're depressed. That's not that cool. Don't worry about it. Nah, fuck that shit. Nah. Like it literally got like negative, you know. And like I say
Mhm.
that now with people is like the things that the right fuel, the right nutrition, physically and spiritually into your body. What it gives you is, yeah, your body will regulate. You will maintain just this beautiful state of homeostasis, and you will heal. You will feel things that seem foreign because of how much of a deficit you've lived in and how behind the eight ball, pun intended, that you've been with, like, you know, contributing to this poisoning, self poisoning. That when you feel this stuff, it feels like, oh my god, I'm superhuman. It's like, no, 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 no. This is the standard. Everything else has been just, we've been behind it. And especially when you talking about fats and like, yeah, deriving the energy from the purest and most long burning energy system that there is without like falsified, simple bursts through carbohydrates, especially simple and, highly processed and GMO'd and, I mean, chemically created and otherwise manufactured. It just makes a lot of sense, but I think it takes a radical experience like you had to get to understand that. For the average person that's out there walking around and maybe they don't have the luxury of an extreme circumstance. And I say luxury in a good way because it obviously gave you opportunity to find that, and enough to where you were able to create a business around. I mean, like, was that, like you talked about that being like your catalyst to unlocking yourself and starting over. It's still the same now. Like you still maintain that loyalty to your nutrition that much.
Oh yeah, man. Like to an extent where I won't go to family dinners and such like that, or like Thanksgiving, Christmas, unless I am the one that's purchasing the food.
Nice.
Because what they've even experienced there is like, oh wow, I could have a whole huge ass meal on Thanksgiving, but I don't feel bloated. I don't feel like I need to go into a food coma.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, you may notice this too. It's like the people that are close to you generally don't want to really receive your
It's the hardest.
knowledge, your
The
information.
hardest.
Yeah. So things don't stick, even though like you can give someone that experience, like, here it is. You don't need to feel the way that you have been. And yeah, man, I've just noticed it. And I'm sure you've experienced this with your fast, like how euphoric you can feel.
Yeah.
where it feels like you're on drugs. So I've done ecstasy, I've done Molly, smoked weed, and the feeling that I get when I'm deep into ketosis, deep in a fast, is pretty much exactly like that. Like I'm full of love. I
Mm-hmm.
could literally be in the truck on 6 to 8 hours of my 72-hour fast, or maybe even longer. And I'm just like, I'm giddy. Like I'm
Yeah.
smiling from ear to ear. Meanwhile, I haven't eaten. And everyone thinks that it's like, oh, I need to eat a snack, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Let me load up on my orange juice and yada. It's
Yeah.
like you are not feeling the way that you potentially can. And since you
Yeah.
brought up mushrooms, I just want to rewind a little bit. Yeah, obviously that could make things look more vivid, but that was also a catalyst to, um, I would say, my personality changes. So getting rid of anger, getting rid of jealousy, being more accepting and understanding. And what it did for me was the first time that I took it, the relationship that I was in, again, I was very jealous at the time, but it literally kind of gave me this out of body experience where I could kind of see myself differently in the way that I
Yeah.
was moving and where these feelings were coming from. And then it was like, oh, I'm jealous of them hanging out with this person because I was abandoned. Like technically,
Mm.
with the adoption, I felt like I was just left. So I had this fear subconsciously. Subconscious is really an area where people would need to work on, and this is why I'm mindful of anything that I take in, any type of media. It's like I don't want garbage in my brain.
Yeah.
I want to think for myself. I don't want to think others' thoughts. So, are your thoughts actually yours, or have you been programmed? That's why they call it television programming.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, the mushrooms were definitely a way for me to like just reflect. And then what I would say with that, because I was thinking about it before the show, it's like it's a journey, and I don't know if you experience this yourself. So once you have that like crisis or you hit a wall and you try to find yourself back on the right path that you really want to be on, it's not just like instantaneous. Like it can be quite ugly because if you went off trail and you got to find your way back. There's no real shortcuts. You got to go all through that shit again.
Yep.
You got to deal with it. Doesn't just leave. You can't keep bearing it. And that's something that fasting does for me. It's a way to kind of tap into that um, without needing any type of drugs.
I think, real quick for everyone, I actually came to know James because he's drinking it right now. Perfect, right on cue. Per his holy water, as he calls it, sold at Southwest Ranches Farmers Market. Shout out to Southwest Ranches. Love you guys. Um, that's how I came to first know of James. Bought a bunch of jars of that and was like, man, this is pretty cool. This guy makes this his own stuff. Like clearly somebody's got to have a pretty serious connection with his body to be so behind what he's putting into it to, put mason jars out of what he calls his holy water. But yeah, man, I find a lot of that similarly in fasting, what you're talking about. And I call that, consciously seeking suffering for personal growth, right? Where it's like, okay, do you mean I don't need anything exogenous? I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to sit with the Dalai Lama. I don't need to go to Peru. Like all those things can be great. Yes, yes, yes. And we've partaken in many of those things. Yes, yes, yes. And they're awesome experientially. But the integration part, I think that's what you're kind of getting on. That's the real work. The experience itself is not like, hey, you drank ayahuasca, cool, like your life's changed. It can happen, don't get me wrong, but it's the integration or the reintegration of all of that. Like, how are you going to incorporate what you've learned or what you've found or what's been passed to you through this experience? You always in any of those experiences, you get exactly what you need. You might not get what you want, but you're going to get exactly what you need. Might not be what you thought you came for, but you're going to get what you need. And so, putting that into life, I think, is the challenge. Not think that's definitely the challenge. Taking the things or inducing the experience, even getting into the fast. The fast is not the challenge. I think it is the reverence or the observance that takes place afterwards, the reflection, and then integrating that in life, right? Like, yeah, the fast is its own thing, but it's like enjoying it, being very, very, very present and aware for it. It's an opportunity. It's like a luxury because you're just in such an isolated headspace that, you know, it's an individual sport, right? Like, even if we do it collectively, it's still an individual sport because you're going through what you're going through in your time. But what you find there, and then having to apply that into life, and how to share that and assimilate, you know, in your own world, that to me is the challenge. So, kind of segueing onto the holy water, like, where did that come from? Was that a realization you had, um, you know, during a fast, or was it kind of like putting some ideas together? Because that's some good stuff. And like, tell us about what holy water is and, like, you know, where that kind of came from.
It was actually my fiance Jade's idea. I can't take credit for that one. So
Honest
we were
man,
just
love that.
making, yeah, we were making them at home. I'm sure you've read it countless times. Like the majority of people are magnesium deficient. And I really became conscious and aware. It's like, okay, food matters, what type of media you're consuming matters, like everything matters. The type of light that you're underneath matters.
Mm,
Everything matters, including water. So I stopped drinking out of plastic water bottles. I did some like deep diving into like fluoride and such like that. So initially, again, when I was still at my parents and I was making this radical change, literally everything kind of just changed at once. It can't even really remember where like things started because I kind of went on like 8 different paths all at once. I started researching light. I was reading a butt ton, bro. Like you saw those books.
yeah.
Once I developed the skill to actually read fluently and fast, it just became addicting. And it's like I want more and more. So I read like
Mm,
Dave Asprey stuff. He talked about easy water. So the water that's in your cells isn't really H2O, it's H2O2. I believe that's what it is. So it's structured water. You can structure your water through light, like exposing it to sunlight. And it's just, you're essentially hydrating yourself better. Like you could drink Zephyr Hills water, Dasani water, and you'll probably just piss it out. You won't actually feel quenched. You won't feel
mm,
quenched drinking Gatorade and all that BS either. But I noticed that once I was more mindful of my water consumption, I got like a Berkey water filter. I've got the fluoride filters for that too. That's where I started. I was just downing water, and it's like I could get enough of it, but it's like I wanted more water. I heard this on a podcast once. Like there's people that don't like drinking water, like literally don't like drinking water. They'll drink Coke.
yeah.
And the lady that was on there suggested that maybe the reason why people don't like drinking water is because it's not hydrating them or it's literally poisoned.
Yeah.
Like what's in your water? So um, after the Berkey, I really wanted to buy an upgrade, and I went with this company called Pristine Hydro. So they have a 10-stage water filtration system, which has reverse osmosis. It takes out all the acids, the contaminants. It remineralizes the water with magnesium. So there's some magnesium bicarbonate in there. And
Nice.
then it also restructures the water. It runs the water over these lodestones. So if you look out in nature, there really is no water that just runs in like these 90-degree angles that we have the pipes in. So the water that comes into your home, it's running at these 90-degree angles. It is the furthest thing from natural water that you could be drinking. So that's where I upgraded to. And then I came across magnesium bicarbonate, which is really like readily available, bioavailable source of magnesium. Some people that take different sources of magnesium, they may get like diarrhea. They may have runny stool and such like that. That's a sign that either whatever you're taking, whatever you're consuming, isn't really a bioavailable source, or you got too much of it. And when we started drinking the magnesium bicarbonate, especially Jade, while she was pregnant, she noticed that she pooped better. So she had much better bowel movements, much less anxiety, gave her more energy,
Mm,
which is crucial, especially for a pregnant woman. And she suggested, hey, let's sell these.
Yeah.
So came up with kind of a system which at the moment is on pause, just kind of overwhelmed with stuff. But I will get back to making those and selling them at the market again. But once I started selling them and people like yourself started putting them out there, I started getting pretty good reviews from it. One of my clients, he was downing one of the 32-ounce bottles a day, and he was
Nice.
raving about it. He's like, dude, my boners, like every day. I'll wake up 3 a.m. and I'm like rock hard. I'll be out on a boat in the middle of the day or driving, and I got like wood. I feel like a teenager again.
Nice.
And then I would get other pregnant women that would reach out to me like, oh my God, this helps with my anxiety so much. This helps with my skin. So that's essentially holy water, and we imprint it with a few other things. I believe it's shilajit, vitamin C. So imprint, as I mentioned before, you can kind of structure water with light.
Yep.
Water also holds memory too. So if you were to look in the work of Vita Austin or what's his name, Myota or something like that, they would freeze like these ice crystals, and what they would find
Oh,
afterwards is they take
exposing
the
them
shape.
to either light or darkness or stress or noise, different noises, and how they
Hmm.
would crack and change structure.
Yep.
Yeah, the
Hmm.
Japanese. What is his name? I remember the Japanese experiment. The Japanese. It's called like the Japanese water experiment. It's a really basic name, but totally remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah, super cool.
Hmm. Yep. Even just like putting a word next to it,
Yeah,
it'll react to it.
yeah. Did you ever
So
in a
there's
million
this.
years think that, or maybe even 10 years ago, that you'd be such a water aficionado?
No, not at all.
Or that,
But
learning about water would be such a lifesaver to you?
once you've kind of gone down like one path, I feel like everything kind of just comes to a head and meets you somewhere. It's like you can only get away with just nutrition and working out for so long, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like it really amazes me how there's influence out there that can get away with drinking like the protein shakes with all the fillers and such with
yeah,
that, or the protein bars and the whole calories in, calories out model, which I guess we can get into a little bit because I think what's actually happening there is they're benefiting from like the hormonal release just from exercise alone. So, from my understanding, what I've learned recently through functional range conditioning is like the intensity of your workout really dictates the hormonal response that you're going to get. So, if you want growth hormone or if you want testosterone to be released, like you need to go hard. Your intensity needs to be up there.
yeah,
So if they're going hard, then yeah, they can get away with it and they'll look the part, but you really don't know what's going on underneath the hood.
yeah, yeah, facts. So I guess it was pretty easy. I mean, like, for a guy that was down on his luck, fell at rock bottom, lost his job, walked out of one job, didn't get another job, had the car accident, was broke, living back home with the folks, to turn it around from one day. And then how long did it take you to attract your mate, now the love of your life and the mother of your child?
I wasn't focusing on it. That would be my advice to anyone is like, don't chase, attract. There's the law of reversal, I believe it is,
Mm,
where it's like the more that you try to pursue something, the more that you have this needy type of energy,
yeah,
the farther away it's going to get. Like you're pushing it away from you. Or if like a cat, you want to pet a cat and you try to keep touching it over and over and over again, it's just going to keep skirting away. But meanwhile, the day that you're like sitting back, relaxing, not really even paying attention, now the cat comes and sits in your lap.
yeah,
So there's this delicate balance where you need to actually put some type of effort in. But if you're attached to the outcome, sometimes it can elude you. It could be quite elusive. So I wasn't really trying, but it was just very natural. She popped up literally at the gym that I was working at, which is a gym called the Hive. It's for independent contractors, which is an amazing setup. If anyone's in South Florida and you're looking to be a coach, the Hive is a really great atmosphere to be in. Like everyone there is really, really well educated.
nice.
Everyone has their own unique styles. But she showed up there
I've heard
and
of
we
it.
were
I have
flirting in
heard
the
of it.
gym.
I've heard of it. Yeah, 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 cool.
Mhm. So we were just flirting, and I was definitely avoiding her at the time. I was out just focused, monk mode. I was after my goals, didn't really want any relationship, and then I was like, all right, let's see what this is about. And went on a few trips together. She's essentially my exact counterpart. And that would be some more advice is like, if you're going to have a child, make sure you know who you're having it with. Because, I don't know, it gets me a little bit emotional, man. It's like how much I love the kid and how much I want to see him grow up with like a happy, healthy family. And then you hear like other stories where it doesn't really work out that much. It's like, I believe kids really need the Trinity, the mother and the father.
Mm.
They need to see that example.
Man, who thought being told that I know that look could have such a,
Mm.
yeah, like you said, be the domino you needed, man, to get you here now as a happy and proud father and soon to be husband. It's just beautiful, man. What's upcoming for you? What's on the precipice? I know you said about getting back in the holy water thing, but what else is going on? What's coming up in the near future for you?
I want to get back into the podcast. I haven't really recorded any episodes lately. I've kind of had like writer's block,
Sure.
podcast wise anyway. I don't really want to just put out a mess load of episodes if I have no real reason to. Like any of the
Yeah.
episodes that I've done, I've been researching that stuff for years already, and I know the exact person that I want to ask. So I go for quality over quantity there. And then I'm also currently recording stuff for my online coaching program. Uh,
Nice.
been procrastinating with that for a while. I was dealing with a little bit of perfectionism, but now it's just like I need to change. Want to be out in nature even more. I see how
Mm.
much Jax, my son, benefits from it. Um, and I just actually been thinking about teaching kids, man, because I'm very conscious of who I want him to be around. I take him to my workouts and stuff. Thankfully, I'm able to do that. He sees my clients working out. He sees people
Nice.
eating well. So
Nice.
I want to surround him with healthy people, and I'm not really going to put him in school. I'm not a fan of the education system. I want him to be free. And I know that there's Waldorf, there's Montessori schools and such like that, but I think I want something that's literally out in nature. And I don't really know that at the moment. So something that's been on my mind, maybe I'll create that in the future.
Oh, God, that's cool. Last question for you. What is the namesake of King Six Killer? And for anyone that doesn't know, that's James's handle online.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I didn't think anyone would ever ask me that question. Some people are like, what does that mean? So, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, I'm adopted, and I did end up reaching out to my biological family. My sister coerced me into spitting into my adopted sister, she coerced me into spitting into a tube, sending it out to 23andMe, and some of my relatives, my biological family, they ended up reaching out to me. Again, I wasn't really pursuing this, it kind of just came. So I ended up meeting my biological family, my biological father, and my half sisters, half brothers, and such over there. And I've spoken briefly with my biological mother on the phone. I haven't met up with her, but through our conversations, she told me that my birth name, like when I was just a little baby in my crib or whatever it was at the hospital at the time, what they did was they put the label on my crib that said Fox Six Killer. So I was baby Fox Six Killer at the time before I was named James Andriella. And I just thought that was a incredibly badass last name. And I asked for her permission if it'd be okay to use that as my Instagram handle. So that would be King Six Killer.
That is awesome story.
There's more that goes into it too. My grandfather played, pretty sure he played for the Miami Dolphins. Played, I know, at University of Miami football. And if you go back in the Six Killer name, it literally means like a Native American. He ended up killing six people in like self-defense. So that is King Six Killer.
That's an ending note for sure.
I didn't
That's
expect that
awesome,
one.
dude. That is so cool. Where do we find you online? Where do we sign up for coaching? Where can we tune into the podcast?
So you can find me on Instagram at King Six Killer. That's pretty much the only platform that I'm really on. I've dabbled with TikTok and such, but it's just too much. Like I don't really spend too much time on social media anymore. Um, You could also visit my website, backtohuman.us. So not .com, backtohuman.us. It's got a list of all my podcasts and all the products that I have affiliations with, products that I use on a daily basis. I don't really endorse anything that I don't truly believe in or that I don't use. So if you're interested in some of the stuff that I've used that has benefited me and my clients, you could support me by visiting and using those links or the codes. I would definitely appreciate that. And then Back to Human, the podcast you can find on Spotify and Apple iTunes. Simple, Back to Human.
Cool. Well, man, James Andriella, the King Six Killer. It's great to have you on the show, man. We really appreciate your time and your vulnerability, sharing yourself, being comfortable in doing so, even if it was uncomfortable for you. We really appreciate it, and I hope anyone can take something of value away from what you've been able to share and the insights you've given us. I know I have for sure. A big shout out to Mark Magna again and the team at Anatomy, to the South Florida community, to Southwest Ranches Farmers Market for sure. Um, I mean, the friends and kinships that we've shared throughout that world for sure, man. To everybody else out there and to anyone else, stay strong. Like James said, to be able to be recognized by a look of knowing what it means to feel the way he did. Remember that. Remember that. And for the namesake of this show, don't be sick, scared, and stupid. Be strong, be brave, be empowered. So for another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid, I'm your host, Jake Thomas. Appreciate you joining. I'll see you next time.